have our Autocom ICON aftermarket diagnostic tool connected into the vehicle. We've got our little blue LED indicating there, which means that we're communicating actually on Bluetooth communication for this part of the diagnostics. Because we're not doing any coding or programming at this point, it's safe enough to say that we're okay to communicate over on Bluetooth. There's a couple of different ways, first of all, of identifying the vehicle with the Autocom software. One of them is by the vehicle identification number. So we're fortunate in the UK that we can read the full vehicle details from the registration number. Just note on a side of caution on that particular format, if you're going to use the registration number, not all registration numbers will decode the VIN exactly into the engine type and the engine size, so there may be some manual input still to do. I think fortunately with this particular vehicle, I think all the information that we need we're going to be able to get from the registration number. However, if we didn't know the registration number, or it was a personalised registration not registered at DVLA, we could simply select the brand, the make, the model, the year, etc. Bit more involved, as we'd need to do some manual detection work to get that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the registration number into here. So as soon as we've typed our registration number in, there's no enter, no nothing. It will automatically search the database. Of course, you will need an internet connection on your laptop to do that with, because it needs to check against the DVLA. It's identified the vehicle identification number here on the left hand side, and really quite useful as well. Before we'd even done that, if we didn't have the diagnostic tool already connected, there is a little handy connection guide here as to where the diagnostic socket location is. Worth having a look at the notes in here, because there are some useful bits of information when you're connecting to vehicles that have got key cards, for example, where vehicles go into economy mode. So there's some really good little hints and tips of information that can be found in that diagnostic connection guide. On the right hand side of the screen under the registration number, the system is automatically defaulted into almost like the special functions section. But before we go that far, we're going to do a global scan of the vehicle first. So we can do that by selecting one of these icons over here. It's also worth noting and mentioning at this point here that this particular system, the Autocom, is very, very good on vehicles with secure gateway. And we have a unique secure gateway icon here, which is just identified by the little person symbol here in the center. Now, there's a couple of ways in which you can use that. You can click on it and sign in before you start your diagnostic session, or you can wait until you're actually wanting to get through a secure gateway and physically enter the details there. Okay, so it's worth noting. So to start our global system scan, there's a little icon at the bottom in the center screen here. We simply select. Once we've made that selection, this is where we can decide which ECUs we actually want the system to actually scan for. So if we want to do a full complete vehicle scan, then we can leave the tick boxes alone in place. If not, we can deselect and we can just select the ECUs that we're interested in. That might be just the drivetrain, the powertrain, or it could be body control modules. All right. In this instance, we're going to leave them all selected so you can see how quickly it does a full global scan. We'll start with the scan button. You can see our battery voltage up here in the top right hand corner. It's set to 14.6 volts, courtesy of our stabilized battery voltage that we've got on under the vehicle at the moment. As we're starting to scan, we can see we've got a couple of fault codes. Now we've got a yellow warning triangle here. This indicates that the VIN number has not been able to identify the exact engine code on the vehicle, so it is asking us to make a manual selection. I know already by doing my research through technical data that it is the YN2X engine. So we're going to use that later when we go in specifically to the engine system. Okay, now I've selected the engine, you can now see the yellow warning triangle has disappeared, and we now have a little number 2 in a red circle. That denotes that we've got 2 specific DTCs, data trouble codes, stored in that ECU. We've also got an additional fault code here stored in the climate control, but we're not really interested in that particular fault code today. We're interested really in what faults may have occurred in the engine since an engine swap. So as we look at the software here now on screen, we have our systems located down the left hand side, so we can see the ECUs that have resulted with no fault codes and the ECUs with fault codes. So we can just navigate quite easily and simply into one of these respective systems on the left, which is quite handy because the service light reset is automatically listed at the top. So if we just wanted to do a quick service reset, we can identify that just with the service light reset option there at the top. Center, we have our DTC stored. Now, of course, that list could be quite big, depending on how many it finds on the initial global scan. And on the right-hand side of the screen, then we've got the split into two specific areas. It's split into real-time data, which is what we're selected now, which is identifiable by the little green symbol here. Or alternatively, we can look at the special functions. Okay, so this is the special functions and the real-time data options side of the screen. Now, on live data and special functions, the list will be quite big at the moment because all we've done is identified all systems on the vehicle. So this will now show us all the things that we can probably do and look at whilst we're on the particular vehicle. If we need to narrow that down, then we need to select our ECU on the left. So we're going to go ahead now and select our diesel engine ECU. On the right hand side, you'll see now the list has gone specific to live data just for the engine management ECU. Before we go into any special functions, what we're going to do, however, is just look at the fault codes. So we've got here our two fault codes, P228C and we've got the P0087, both with descriptions of fuel pressure regulator 1 and fuel pressure control valve. So we're directly now inside the engine ECU screen. We can see our fault codes that we've got here. Now, it's worth pointing out there are a couple of additional little symbols over here on the right hand side. Okay, so we've got our what we call freeze frame data, so that's hidden underneath this little icon here. What that does is basically breaks down and shows us exactly how many times it's been seen or how many times the fault codes occurred since last search, etc. And also as well, this particular little symbol is going to give us some guided diagnostics on it as well, so probability rate of where the specific issue should be. It's worth noting that this particular system, you can incorporate it into the Haynes Pro technical data, so you can get a lot more information around the fault code, wiring diagrams and technical help and assistance. Also safety recalls and technical bulletins, so that's a well worth add-on subscription. Down here now on the left hand side underneath the read the DTCs, we've got the same symbol but with a little cross through it. That basically now is our erase DTC option. So if I wanted to try to erase these two fault codes and see if they did recur, we could do that quite easily. I'm not going to do that at this point here because I'm going to use this as a comparison against the dealer tool. The next option down is the real-time data. So again, we can select this 363 potential bits of data that we can see from the ECU, and we can actually then select exactly what we want to view over here on the right hand side. That will display either as a text interface, whichever you prefer, so that can be quite nice, and it gives you the ability to build up your own data lists. We've got then our specific basic adjustments or our tests, and the way this works here is you have a drop down menu here that then says exactly what we can do. So we've got our injector programming, our injector additive reset, diesel particulate filter regen, and reset the diesel particulate filter data. Again, other ECUs will show other different options. Now, I mentioned earlier about the injector programming, so I'm going to select the injector programming option. This now will give us a nice little text help file that tells us exactly what all the prerequisites are and how we should proceed. So we can take a couple of seconds just to read through. It wants to know the injector code may consist of both letters and numbers. If there's any characters that are not used, as some manufacturers don't use I's and ones, for example, so you get them mixed up. So again, that will tell you any specifics that you're looking for here. And again, the procedure, so start the function, dialog box appears showing the programmed injector codes, press OK. So it's giving us a nice little walkthrough. When we're happy that we've read everything and that we meet all the prerequisites, we start the actual physical function with the little play icon here on the right hand side. Now it's asking us to make sure the engine is off but the ignition is on. We have got ignition switched on position 2, no engine running, click OK. And what we're really wanting to see now are these injector codes that are physically stored. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to check these codes now to see if these are actually the same in the software and in the ECU. Are they the correct ones that are stored for the physical injectors? So we're going to go and check those with the pictures that we've saved from the physical codes off the injectors earlier. So we'd identified the injector codes are different, so we do need to proceed with programming. Now if we were using the Autocom tool, that could be quite easily simply done by selecting cylinder 1, or you can select whichever cylinder you want that's actually had the injector code replaced. In this instance, all 4 have been changed, so we need to go through each one by one anyway. The technical data and the help will easily identify us, or the Haynes technical information will identify which is cylinder 1 to 4, so it'll tell us how to read cylinder 1, which is the closest this end and that end, so we don't get them all mixed up. But quite easily and simply, we select the cylinder that we want, we click OK, and we type the new injector code in. After that, the data will then be saved.